Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Today's episode will be an economics-heavy episode, and most of this news is relatively negative. I know there's been a lot of negative news on the economy lately. China is having a tough year, and that tough year continues this week. This is not on purpose. This is not cherry-picking. It's just simply the reality that at the moment, the most important economic developments are typically negative. Chinese technology giant Tencent has joined its peers in the industry, seeing its first quarterly drop in staffing since 2014 and its first recorded fall in sales. The operator of the extremely popular super app WeChat and China's most valuable company saw revenue fall a deeper than projected 3% to $19.8 billion, with net income plunging 56% in Q2. In addition to multiple rounds of layoffs, other measures have been taken to control expenditure for the company. For example, adjusting its salary policy to slow the pace of pay rises and rolling out a new performance review system for employees. Tencent executives say this week that, quote, international gaming, cloud software and WeChat video will be the most strategic priorities. End quote. Domestic games, traditionally a big earner for the technology giant, has proven to be a source of recent pain. In July last year, Chinese regulators paused approvals for games as they sought to, quote, align the industry with its values, end quote. While it restarted approvals earlier this year, Beijing has not okayed any games from Tencent. And of course, Tencent also has had to navigate the last 2 years of regulatory storms within the technology industry generally. Storms that other players like Ant Financial and Alibaba have not weathered too well. Quote, Tencent is still an amazing company, but their latest earnings report is another reminder that the go-go growth era for Tencent and other large internet platforms is over and is not coming back in the foreseeable future. The new regulatory normal, competition, and the weak economy have fundamentally changed the outlook for the firm. End quote. Next up for the economy, in a bit of a surprise move, though not unprecedented, in a front-page report this week, the People's Bank of China, China's central bank affiliated Financial News, called on the central government to introduce more new pro-growth policies to, quote, keep growth within a reasonable range, end quote. With the report coming just 1 day after the People's Bank of China cut interest rates, analysts argue that the piece is basically the central bank telling policymakers behind fiscal spending, this rate cut won't be enough, you guys need to do more to stimulate the economy. In saying this, though, there is expectation that the People's Bank of China next week may cut the loan prime rate, the de facto benchmark lending rate. Though analysts, including those with Nomura Holdings, write this week that such a move will do little to boost credit demand. The support will need to come from the fiscal side, meaning more bond sales and local government-driven spending. Quote, given the lingering COVID restrictions and fragile economic recovery, we expect the government to continue increasing policy support in the rest of 2022. The path of economic recovery in the second half will be bumpy and uncertain, depending on COVID and related policies, developments in the property market, and strength of external growth. End quote. Now, on the topic of the housing crisis, as well as the local government spending, we come back once again to the old theme which we have explored several times in the past, the interdependence between housing development, land use sales, and local government spending. We have, of course, been following the slow deterioration of the housing market this year, day by day, week by week. Due to the drop in revenue from land use sales to developers, local governments will need to sell more bonds in coming months in order to fund infrastructure projects that they will need to fund due to central government directives. According to a statement by the Ministry of Finance yesterday, Wednesday, general public revenue in the first 7 months of this year was $1.8 trillion, down a painful 9.2% versus the same period last year. What's more, general public spending, which excludes infrastructure spending but includes virus testing and control spending for zero COVID implementation, was up 6.4% during this period year-on-year, accelerating from the 5.9% increase seen in the 6 months to June. We remember that tax revenue has taken a big hit this year for local governments, but the biggest factor behind the hit to government revenue is the housing crisis and its effect on land demand. Quote, demand from property developers to buy land has collapsed as the housing crisis deepened. As a result, local government's revenue from selling land in the first 7 months of this year plummeted almost 32% to 2.8 trillion yuan. End quote. According to Bloomberg analysts, based on the above-mentioned Ministry of Finance data, this mismatch has resulted in a budget deficit of 5.24 trillion RMB so far this year, approximately $770 billion, and could well hit $1 trillion deficit by the end of the year. But this doesn't include infrastructure, which will require more borrowing. According to state media reporting today, Thursday, local governments have room to issue an extra 1.55 trillion RMB, $229 billion in special debt and bonds this year to, quote, support infrastructure investment. End quote. The chief economist at Yuekai Securities Co. was quoted in one state-run article as anticipating the quota for next year's special bonds to also be brought forward to be used in the fourth quarter of this year. We remember that some localities have actually already done this too. With all this in mind, it's no surprise to see Chinese financial outlet Yicai report this week that several cities have reduced the minimum down payments for first home buyers to 20%, the lowest in 10 years, and for second home buyers to 60% from 80%. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit the like button. It's a huge help, and anyone who wants to go the extra mile and help me continue making these episodes for you guys every day, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. This is the best way to help me keep China Update financially sustainable and primarily subscriber supported. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. The UN Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Slavery published a special report in which Xinjiang was discussed. We will quote some of the report relevant to China, then Beijing's official response. Quote, based on an independent assessment of available information, including submissions by stakeholders, independent academic research, open sources, testimonies of victims, consultations with stakeholders, and accounts provided by the government, the Special Rapporteur regards it as reasonable to conclude that forced labor among Uyghur, Kazakh, and other ethnic minorities in sections such as agriculture and manufacturing has been occurring in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China. While these programs may create employment opportunities for minorities and enhance their incomes, as claimed by the government, the Special Rapporteur considers that indicators of forced labor, pointing to the involuntary nature of work rendered by affiliated communities, have been present in many cases. Further, given the nature and extent of powers exercised over affected workers during forced labor, including extensive surveillance, abusive living and working conditions, restriction of movement through internment, threats, physical and or sexual violence, and other inhumane or degrading treatment, some instances may amount to enslavement as a crime against humanity, meriting a further independent analysis. End quote. And now Beijing's response to the report, quote, a certain special rapporteur chooses to believe in lies and disinformation about Xinjiang, spread by the US and some other Western countries and anti-China forces, abuse his authority, blatantly violate the code of conduct of the special procedure, malignly smear and denigrate China, and serve as a political tool for anti-China forces. China strongly condemns this. End quote. A general report from the UN Human Rights High Commissioner Michelle Bachelet on the region is expected to be published later this year. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a great evening, or afternoon, or morning, wherever you are, and I will see you all tomorrow.